this is an area I'm so passionate about. So, journaling has been there as I've shared my whole life. And I see the journal as a therapist, best friend, your wisest spiritual teacher who is with you 24/7. Your journal will never be asleep, on holiday, unavailable due to work or family commitments. The journal is a space that is available to us at all times. We can never talk for too long, and no one can ever criticize us or stop us talking. The journal is a safe space that's for us. And I love the approach of the creative journal. And this particular model of journaling simply and not so simply means that you can use images and colours as well. There might be a day where somebody's doesn't have the words and it's too hard to try and write, but they could get some grey felt tip out or a grey crayon and draw a grey cloud, or scribble with a red if they're angry, or whatever it is. So for me, journaling has been life-saving, and I've used my journal as a prayerful space my whole life. I'm trying to imagine how my life would have been if I hadn't read Judy Blume's books back in the 80s and 90s. For anyone that doesn't know about Judy Blume's books, Judy Blume was an American author who wrote books for children and young adults that were looking at and directly speaking about some of the most challenging issues and themes that young people face and navigate that no one else was writing about at the time. So issues like being bullied, moving home, being lonely, grieving, first period. And in her book, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, she wrote letters to God in her diary, and certainly talking to God, writing letters to God in my diary was something I did from childhood. The unsent letter is the number one most powerful grief tool I have ever come across. And this is after years of volunteering in a hospice, in care homes, and private spiritual counselling with people. The unsent letter can be used in many ways, but in its simplest form and most powerful form is where we can write a letter to somebody who is no longer alive. One of the things that's most important to me as a human being and as a minister, and I've always felt that my ministry has grief near the centre of it, that my ministry is around grief and dying and loss and mourning, is I don't want anybody to die with a feeling that anything has been left unsaid. And so often when people are grieving and mourning, there were things they didn't say to a loved one, things that feel incomplete. And as Mitch Albom writes in the incredible book Tuesdays with Maury, which is definitely one of the most incredible books around death and grieving I've ever read. And in this course, I'll be providing a reading list with more of the books that have helped me and that I recommend to others. But in that book, Mitch Albom quotes Maury as saying, "Death ends a life, not a relationship." And when somebody dies, our need to talk to them doesn't end, and the unsent letter provides a safe container, a safe space to continue talking to that person and working with grief, with that person there with us. And coming on to poetry and grief memoirs and feel and can be so huge, unwieldy, monstrous, unmanageable, that often people, and I've experienced myself, wouldn't know where to begin with writing about it or talking about it. But reading others' poetry can help open a door. Reading others' crafted words. And what my writing mentors at Survivors Poetry Scotland and Lapidus taught me and continue to teach is there's often different stages of writing, from just putting it down on the page, just letting it come out in its messy, scribbly way, with we don't edit, we don't worry about grammar, spelling, punctuation, repetition, in a way, just pouring it out. But then later can come the crafting process before a poem can be put out into the world if that's what somebody wants. But by reading others' poems, it can help us to feel, yes, someone else has been in a similar place. Things can resonate, echo, help us feel less alone. One of the many painful things about navigating grief is it can be such a lonely experience. It can feel like depression. It can feel like being lost in a fog. And then there's the emotions that our Western world especially is not very good at allowing us to feel or helping us to navigate, like being angry at the person who's died, or the guilt we can feel for being left behind. But through reading of others' experiences, either in poetry or in a grief memoir, it can help us to feel less alone. It can actually give us a feeling of permission to feel everything we're feeling, and to know that although, especially early in a grief journey, it may feel like I'll always be stuck in this place of unremitting, unrelenting agony, misery, feeling lost. Others' writing can be an anchor. It can be a lighthouse. It can help us to know that there is a way forward. And poetry, through its very distilled nature, not being lengthy like a novel, can also help somebody who doesn't have the capacity to read books or memoirs. Sometimes a poem might just be a few words, but a good poem with a few words can open up a universe. It can help us find a crack through which to enter it. I've had mental health problems my whole life. And when I had my last acute breakdown, which was in 2012, I found it almost impossible to read. The book that I was able to read and that helped me more than anything was Miranda McPherson, our founder of the One Spirit Interfaith Foundation, her book called Boundless Love. And it was some of her very short prayers and some of her very short invitations that provided an anchor and something to hold on to. And so, for me personally, poetry and short prayers can help to find a way in. And the grief memoirs, Mirabai Starr's luminous memoir that she wrote after losing her daughter Jenny. I think Jenny was 14 or 15 at the time. Her book, Caravan of No Despair, which was a grief memoir, and then other memoirs I've read in more recent years. By entering the agony and the journey of somebody else's journey with grief, them traveling with grief, again has helped me to feel less alone, has helped me to feel through what helped them with the tools that they share in their memoirs have in turn helped me. And an incredible memoir I read recently was about a lady journeying through grief, through planting a garden, and through working with the soil, with nature. And for me, the full title of my course is Grief Writing, Sacred Tools to Navigate Liminal Space. So the tools I will be offering are very much tools in the way that a spade, a trowel, to work with the soil. And not everything will be for everyone. Some people are more drawn to poems, other to memoir. All of them have helped me at different times in my life. And as somebody who's written my whole life, there's times where I write poetry. Paradoxically, when it's almost too hard to speak or write, I write poetry. Because you don't need to explain things, you don't need to make sense, you don't need to form beautiful sentences and paragraphs. And as an academic person, I don't need to think about all the rules of writing well. Other times I write in longer form, but the words must come out. And a couple of anecdotes I'd like to share. Many years ago in Survivors Poetry Scotland, I was co-facilitating the men's group, and I gave the exercise of an unsent letter to write a letter from part of our body that's in pain to us. So to write a letter to us from part of our body that was in pain. One man who had a wooden leg wrote a letter to himself from his missing leg. As a migraine sufferer, my head wrote to me. And so the unsent letter can work with our grief, our loss, our pain on so many levels. It's such a phenomenally useful tool. And the other anecdote to share is now that I'm an ordained minister, I have the joy of sometimes having completely spontaneous random conversations with strangers when I tell them I'm a minister and I work with grief. And just last week at a train station, a complete stranger who was assisting me with my luggage because of the chronic fatigue shared with me that since she'd lost her father 2 years ago, she'd stopped attending services at her place of worship. And others have shared with me people who've gone to church their whole life, or perhaps a synagogue or a mosque or another place of worship, have told me since they've lost a loved one, they can't go to services, they can't worship, and they're really struggling. And one of the things I most want to offer and hold space for in this course is writing and reading tools to help people to reconnect with God by whichever name they know the divine beloved, to reconnect with themselves, to help people to feel less stuck, to feel like there's that moment in time that they're reliving over and over of their agonising grief, to help people through writing and through reading to be able to re-engage with their life, with their faith, with the community, with the world.